Hey guys, it's TYT Sports, continuing our preview of the World Cup, which I think starts June 12th. I mean, a week from today. It definitely starts June 12th, but we're a week out. Francis Maxwell, our World Cup expert. Have you embraced that moniker yet?
I've took it on board. It's been a week now. So.
Good. Well, I've been impressed with the breadth of your knowledge on this tournament. We're going to talk about Group E: Switzerland, Ecuador, France, and Honduras.
Yeah.
Clearly, you're going South America. You're picking Ecuador and Honduras to advance.
Absolutely not. I have to stick to my my guns about this, and I'm going to pick France and Switzerland, Ben, on this one. I'm going to in my bracket.
So
they're my big
France is France has had a rough. It's like a rough 15 years now.
Yes, wow, 15 years.
And 2010 didn't even make.
They didn't make it out.
Didn't get out of qualifying. They got out of qualifying. They didn't make it out of the group stage. Yeah. But you think the team is back at least enough to get out of the group?
Well, surprisingly enough, they are not the top seed in this group. Switzerland are the top seed in this. But France are still going to be my pick to go first in this group.
Because,
oh, really? Yes. But in 2010, they always have this inner like a squad conflict. The players did not like the coach. Now they're under the coaching staff of Didier Deschamps, and he's a player that was in the World Cup squad in 1998, which won it. So he's got experience there. And I think they're going to have a good team this year. They make a good run at it, I think, with the right squad.
Why do you think France? Like, because the tension inside the team, that's like it seems very French.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think there's a lot of egos in amongst that team, and especially in 2010 there was. It was a big conflict between Patrice Evra, who's never really out of the spotlight in England. He's always having conflicts with other players. Everyone knows about the Suarez-Evra debate. So he was involved in that, but now I think the players that are going to spearhead them through are players that are in form. That's a big factor. They're going to concentrate on the football, I think, and to try and get back to their ways.
Let me ask you this, because many of the Red Sox teams, the Boston Red Sox teams in baseball that were good in the late '80s, they used to have a phrase about them: 25 guys, 25 cabs.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it didn't really, in baseball, it doesn't really matter. You can fight all you want in the clubhouse if you guys are good and you perform in your individual tasks. You can work well as a team. My sense is that both particularly in basketball and maybe football, but particularly basketball and soccer, if you don't get along, it does run a risk of affecting chemistry. Is critical to success in soccer.
I have to agree. Chemistry for me is one of the biggest things in this sport. France have always, ever since their success days in 1998 and 2000, they seem to have been struggling with that chemistry. Especially in the World Cup last time in 2010, a team that's going to argue with their coach is a huge problem. It's got to stem all the way from the coaching staff to the players. You've got to have a chemistry amongst that. I think Spain did have problems with that before, but then since they won the World Cup and the Euros, they have a great team chemistry.
I feel like a little, and we got to get on to Switzerland, but a couple things about France and about chemistry, because I feel like part of chemistry is like it's what people like us talk about.
Yeah.
The commentators talk about it. Like, it's entirely possible that people who have tension with each other end up working very well together.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're fighting the coach and disobeying the coach, it's unlikely to.
Well, I mean, look at me and you. There's some tension here about dress sense, you know what I mean? But we seem to get on pretty well when it comes to it. I mean.
Well, look, you came to work today, and it's embarrassing. I wanted to point out you forgot to roll down your pants.
Also, I
just wanted to tell you before you saw a girl and embarrassed yourself.
I know, but then I was going to actually ask you that John Wayne called and he wants his boots back from whenever the last Western movie.
John Wayne got laid, motherfucker. Okay.
So, but anyway, right. So we've got to talk about the players first in France. So, two of my main men to talk about. Sorry, there's 3 or 4, but I'm going to narrow it down to Franck Ribery. He looks a bit like Jason, our producer over there.
Yeah, we got to throw up a picture of him.
Yeah, got to throw up a picture.
He looks like the villain in a major Hollywood motion picture.
Dr. Evil, by I think comparison. Also, he was one of the Ballon d'Or contenders. But anyway,
he's a tremendous player.
He's a tremendous player, Ballon d'Or contender up against the likes of Ronaldo and Messi. Didn't win it, obviously Ronaldo won it, but he is very good. 16 goals, 13 assists for Bayern Munich this season. They reached the Champions League semi-final, didn't go all the way like they did last year and won it. He's been a big part of their squad, and he's been fighting to shrug off a back injury, but there's talk that he'll definitely make the tournament. Alongside him, Benzema, who is Real Madrid's star man. The thing about Benzema is that I must point out, he was previously dubbed as a in-the-box goal scorer, like always banging in goals wherever he played, and then in Real Madrid he had a tough time to start. But since he started off with 6 assists in 2010, which isn't bad, but then he moved to 15 in 2011, 15 assists, and then 15 in 2012, and he's continued to adapt this part of the game.
So he's changed as a player. Right.
I think under Ancelotti, the Real Madrid manager, he's really thrived this year. And he's bringing in a lot of other players to his game, and that's a huge factor, I think, for France, because they're going to need goals, but with Ribery in there to provide goals, they're going to need Benzema to link up and bring in other players. And they've got tons of other players in the team. There's Cabaye in the midfield, Matuidi, these 2 strong guys who really are strong players. But then finally, there's also Paul Pogba. A lot of people online like to talk about this young man, Paul Pogba. I think another person, he looks like Balotelli, similar people with the hairstyle. I think people start to talk about him. He's a 21-year-old who plays in Juventus. He's going to be a big factor, but for me, the last person to talk about in France is Raphael Varane, who he plays in Real Madrid also, centre-back, who is 21 years of age. I think he only saw 9, I think he made like 10 games in the La Liga starts for Real Madrid. Don't quote me on that, but it's around that number. And then he played in the Champions League final and performed great under pressure.
It sounds like France has a really nice blend of veteran players,
yes,
and then some
youthful guys
very young
which
guys.
Is good. So obviously, I think with that we've got to move on.
So even though France is the lower seed, not the lowest seed, but the second seed in the tournament, you think you like them to win the group?
I think they'll win. I think they'll come out on top, and then we're coming in second is Switzerland. I think in this group, the two teams who are going to take this because Switzerland they are the top seed in this group. They cruised through their qualifying group this year. They were unbeaten in 10 during their qualifying group, keeping 7 clean sheets, and that's a big factor. I always talk about defence. I always talk about how they defend in this competition, and I think they're very good. Keeping 7 clean sheets in qualifying is a big factor.
They're one of the lowest ranked top seeds. I think the only one below them, I think, is Belgium.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
But that said, France is seen by many as sort of a middle of the pack team. So yeah. I'm gonna take this that you by picking France is your way of saying that you're just not that much of a believer in Switzerland.
Yeah, well, I'm not that much of a believer in rankings in general. Like, a lot of these rankings depend on who you're playing against and how they perform. Like France could be drawn in a harder group qualifying, so therefore they didn't win as many games as easily as Switzerland did. And then Switzerland's group wasn't exactly the best during the qualifying, but they got through. Fair play to them. They can only play who you're up against.
Yeah.
I mean, but they did. So they achieved that seed, but. As people look at the top rankings, there is some numbers in there that people are like, well, like Colombia 5th. I mean, they're a good team, but you wouldn't expect them in top 5 with the likes of Germany and everyone in there. But with me, with seeds, it just depends on who you're up against. So Switzerland, although they're a top seed in this group, I don't think they'll take the top spot. I think France will take first, and then you've got Ecuador and Honduras. And Ecuador, who just tied 2-2 to England. I know I don't take much from friendly games because they are only friendly games before, you never really know. But they done pretty well. They've got some pace in there, some strong players like Antonio Valencia, who plays with Manchester United, and they look pretty good.
So if one team from Ecuador and Honduras was going to get past Switzerland or France, it would definitely, in your mind, be Ecuador.
Yeah, I would love Honduras to go through because they have a player who plays left back called Izaguirre, and he plays for my team Celtic. So I mean, I've always got to try and root for my players in there because I don't have a country to root for because Scotland never make it. So I've got to root for players for my team. So I would like Honduras to do well, but for me,
you don't see it.
Yeah, for me it's Switzerland and France.